Oh, welcome back, my Scratch learners, and thank you for coming back if this is not your first visit. We are going to look at adding a health bar to a project, and I've got something really simple set up. Previously, I'd done a video showing about how to make a little simple jump up and catch points kind of game, and this is set up very, very similar. We've got a cat. When I click the flag, it goes to its starting spot, and then the only other thing it does is when I click on the space bar, then it goes up. I also have a shark. I'll show that to you for a second. There's the shark. And the shark, when I click on the flag, goes to its spot, and I have it pointing to the left. Set size to 60%, so it's not too big. And then it hides because we don't want to see the shark. It's going to make copies of itself by cloning, and then every time it spawns, the new one is going to appear and go across to the left-hand side or until it touches the cat, whichever comes first. So it's just going to wait a second at the start, create clones, and then every 2 seconds it's going to make another clone. What the clones are going to do is they are going to show up so that we can see them, and then they are going to go across and either change x by -15, which moves it over to the left, and if the x position is less than -250, if it's really far over to the left, it deletes this clone, and if it's touching the sprite, then it's going to delete the clone. And we're going to fit in a little health counter right away, but let's just see how this works before we do any additions to it. So I click on the flag, and yes, there is the shark going across, and when the cat jumps, the shark goes all the way across to the other side. So there we go. That is really it. We're going to add a health variable to keep track of the health of the cat. So I'm going to go and create a variable called health. I'm even going to spell it correctly. There we go, and you can see that the health is up at the top left of the screen. There's two things we need to know when we bring a variable into a project, and the first thing is what's the value going to be at the start, and the second one is when is it going to change, if ever. So for the health, I want to start off at 5. So I will just do this here when the shark gets clicked. I'm going to set the health to 5. You can have any number that you want, but I don't want this to take too long while we're testing it. And also the more health it has, the more little bars I have to put into the health bar. And it just takes more time to do that. And I want to make this not too long of a video. And now the other thing we need to know is when does it change? Well, it's going to change whenever the shark is touching the sprite, which is right over here in this area of the code. So I'm going to put this here to change health by -1. And then works like that. Health starts off at 5 and goes down to 4, 3. And when I jump over, the shark goes past and it doesn't do anything to the health. But if I just stand there like a lump of clay, it goes down to 0. But here's the problem, is it's going to keep going because there's nothing to make it stop once the health gets down to 0. So what we're going to do is we're going to change up these loops and change from forever loops to repeat until loops. Let's pull all the instructions out of the way and get rid of the forever loop. And over in control, let's go to repeat until. And repeat until is going to run all the code inside of it until a certain condition is met. And in this case, we want it to keep going until the health is equal to 0. So equals is one of the operators. Let's bring that in here. Health, we can grab that variable and pop it in the first spot. And 0. And we also want to stop the clone from spawning, or stop the shark from spawning anymore. So I'm going to do the same thing there. I'm going to grab control, repeat until, bring in the equals operator, bring in health, and then 0. And I suppose I could have done a copy and paste there to make things a little easier, do a duplicate of it. And now these things are only going to happen until the health gets down to 0. So let's click again, and it gets reset up to 5. It goes down. I'm just going to let the shark pound away at the cat until the health gets down to 0. And then we shouldn't see any more of the sharks coming through, and we don't. So that has successfully stopped the program. Great. In most games, though, you're going to see a health indicator bar instead of a number, and it's easier to keep track of the game if you just have that as a visual cue for the health instead of having a number to look at. So we are going to do that. We need a sprite to be the health bar. There is no health bar sprite included in the library, so we are going to have to paint our own. And I just want to zoom in a little bit because I don't want the health bar to be too big. So I'm going to start off with trying to find kind of a green color. And I am red-green colorblind, so if this is not exactly green, I beg your forgiveness. And I'm going to go and make that a rectangle. And I'm just going to draw a little rectangle about like that. And you can see that's what it's going to look like on the screen. Make it a little bit smaller. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And you can see when I drag that down beneath the cap, that's what it's going to look like. It's just going to be a little health bar right there. So big enough to be seen, not too big to distract you from what's happening in the game. Now I want 4 more bars because the health starts off at 5. So I'm going to go to the selector and I'm going to select that, copy, and then paste and drag one in there. And if it's not quite where you want it, here, just let me show you if it's off a little bit. You can see on the stage that looks a little bit off. I can use the arrow keys on the keyboard to get it right into the exact spot that I want. You can see that it looks nice and even underneath there. So I'm going to paste 3 more, and I'll just drag those in one at a time as well, using the keyboard to get kind of the last little touches to make it look good. That looks a little bit too far over. There we go. And that looks pretty good. As does that. Okay, so I'm going to now take this and select all of those by dragging across and selecting all of those. And when I select pieces, I get a little plus in the middle of the group. And I just drag that down to where the bullseye is in the middle of the paint screen, because that way I know that the center of the sprite is right there. And that's going to be my full health indicator. Let me drag this up a little bit right there. Okay, and because that's where I want it to go when I get started, I'm just going to drag that in right now. I'm going to say when the flag is clicked, then I want to make sure that it is in the right spot. It's not going to move in the program, but just kind of a habit that I have for getting things into the spot at the start regardless. Going back to the costumes, I've got 4 of these. And I just noticed that I didn't like that, so bear with me. There, that looks a little bit better. I've got 5 of these, and so I need to have a costume where it's all 5 that are full. And I don't have to do different sprites for each of these. Just one sprite with different costumes will do. So I'm going to make a copy of this costume by going up here and doing a right click or a 2-finger click if you're working on a trackpad. And now I've got a copy of it called Costume 2. And all I want to do is I want to make this last bar filled in red instead of filled in green. So I'm going to go to my paint bucket tool, and I'm going to change the fill color to a nice bright red. And now I take the paint tool over to that, and when I go to the last one and click in it, it changes the color of that to red. And you can see that on the stage as well. And I'm going to make a duplicate of that and do the same thing to the second last bar. And I'm going to do that to that one again, and again, and again. Fantastic. So we now have a health bar that has full. It has 1 damage, 2 damage, 3 damage, 4 damage, just 1 life left, and full damage. And that's when we're going to end the game, is when it gets to 0 health, or that's when the game ends. So let's go back to the code. And this is actually going to be really simple. I need to, first of all, make sure that I go to the correct costume, which is costume 1 at the start. So when I start off, there it goes to full health. And there are a lot of ways, or a few different ways that you can code this. One way would be to have a loop inside of here and have it monitor to see if the health goes down and then change the costume whenever the health goes down. But that would be a lot of work. An easier way to do that is to use a broadcast message. And if you haven't used broadcast messages before, super handy things to have. What they do is they send a signal from one sprite to the other sprite. It's kind of like a Bluetooth connection. And I'm going to put that in here that if it is touching the cat, it drops the health by 1, and it's going to send out a message. I'm going to change and put a new message in there so that the name of it makes more sense to me. And I'm going to call that hit, like that. And over here for the costume, for the health bar, the code for the health bar, I'm going to bring in the trigger when I receive hit. And all it needs to do when it receives the hit is go on to the next costume. So this is really helpful for using a health indicator on any kind of game, is just when it receives the message that there's been a hit, go on to the next costume. So let's see if this works. Okay, the shark sends the hit signal and the health bar receives it and goes on to the next costume. So there we go. Hit number 1, hit number 2, hit number 3, 4, and 5. And then it stops. All there is to it. I want to move the shark up just a little bit higher. So I'm just going to change its Y to -100 because it was running into the health bar. That's better. And can I get the cat to jump over it? Yeah. So there we go. We have the health bar indicating how much health the cat has left. And here it is. I guess this cat only has 5 lives. And since we have that indicator there, that's probably what people keep an eye on while they're playing the game, not looking up at the number all the way up in the other corner. So I'm going to go to variables, and I'm just going to uncheck beside health so that we're not showing the health anymore as a number displayed on the stage. And that's it. That is having damage and health bar that you can have in a game. Hopefully you are able to use that in some of your own coding projects. If you do come up with anything interesting that you've made, you can share it on the Scratch website and then put a link to that in the comments below. And please like and subscribe if you are enjoying the videos that I'm creating, and encourage me to keep doing more. Have a great day and keep scratching.